All right, everybody, we've got an awesome episode for you. We're going to be breaking down Texas Tech offense this season with our guy, RC Maxfield, friend of the show. Third time we've had him on. It's a little different since the last time you've been on. Arlie is no longer part of the show. I think he was scared of his Jaguars bets, that he made with you. I think he was scared of paying those debts
Probably.
off.
Yeah. You can only put so much faith into Urban Meyer. Just ask his
Oh,
wife,
yeah.
right?
That is very true. But this year, it's a little different. So last year, we were drinking the Kool-Aid, right, of Matt Wells. We were excited heading into that season. Obviously, we know how that turned out. Now enter Joey McGuire. So RC, just as we are a little bit less than 3 weeks away from the official kickoff of the Joey McGuire era, just kind of let us know how you're feeling about it, how excited you are for this new era of Texas Tech football.
It's just wild. I mean, I've really only been like in the grand scheme of things like a relatively new follower of Texas Tech.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, I didn't really care about Texas Tech before I got accepted into the school,
Right.
rightly or
Yeah.
wrongly. But once you got accepted, I just kind of engulfed myself in it, and it's one of those things where I'm thinking about it since 2013. I maybe a little bit when Cliff, they won that bowl game out in
Right.
California against Cal.
Davis Webb.
Yeah, exactly. There was some hype around that, Davis Webb being the next great quarterback, and then they ended up going 4-8. But I I think overall, this is probably the most excited since I've actually started paying attention to Texas Tech, and rightfully so. It's not one of those excitements where you're excited over nothing in terms of results so far.
Right.
I guess on the field results, right? But you look at what he's done in the recruiting, cycle. It's just wild, man. I mean, like I thought whoever they got at the head coaching position would obviously do better. It felt like Matt Wells was just on the chopping block the minute
Right. Yeah.
um, he lost his first game, which is not fair to him, but it's the business, I guess. But this just feels so drastically different in the way that fans are approaching it, and really even media members too. I talk to people that cover the team and everything. And it's just like, man, it just feels different in the way that they're talking about it. And I think that says something in the sense of obviously you want to stay non-biased, and it's definitely
Right.
difficult being a tech grad to be that
Yeah.
way sometimes. But at the same time, it's like it's justified, and it doesn't feel like we're just talking to talk about tech football. There's actually some excitement about it, and yeah, they're going to let you down. That's every college football
Right.
team, but there's also going to be super highs, and that's something that I don't think Tech has really had outside of a couple of games last season in the past,
Yeah.
half decade, 6, 7 years. So it's been incredible, man. I'm very interested to see what he does. Obviously, recruiting only goes so far. You got to put some points
Right.
up on the board and outscore the opponent. But hey, that starts here in the next 3 weeks, man, and I couldn't be more excited for it.
Yeah, he's brought some juice, and I can't remember the last time I cared about recruiting as much as I have been just with him because we didn't have anything, man. It was like we were never in on these top guys. I think, Cliff in his first couple years with Jarrett Stidham and Fajoka, like some of that stuff was exciting, but after that, it really fell off a cliff and hasn't been the same since. So, yeah, so Joey McGuire comes in. We've had David Yost. We've had Sonny Cumbie at OC, which I think he did a pretty good job last year considering the quarterback changes
Phenomenal.
that we have. But now enters Zach Kittley. So just kind of talk about Zach Kittley and what you think that we are getting from a guy whose offense put up video game numbers last year with him and Bailey Zappi at Western Kentucky. Just what do you think that we're getting him that we might have been lacking as an offensive coordinator over the last couple of years?
Yeah, first and foremost, happy birthday
Yeah,
to Zach Kittley. I
it
don't know
is
if
his
y'all
birthday.
saw that. It's his birthday. I think he's like 31.
Yeah,
which
he's
is
like
just
our
an
age.
ultimate slap in the face
Yeah.
to me. Just ultimate slap. He was on campus when I was on campus, which is just disgusting.
Yeah, one of
I've done
my
nothing with my
best
life.
friends is like really close friends with him, and we're in a little fantasy league together here soon, and so I'll get some dirt on Zach if I can from him.
Absolutely. That's what you got to do. You got to bring the guy down a little bit,
Right?
mostly because of the height thing, but also the hype around his offense. No, I think really the thing you're getting with Zach Kittley more than really any coordinator you've had outside of maybe Sonny Cumbie last year is just realistic expectations for your players, right? You're going to put them in a proper position to succeed. You know what they're good at, and he knows he's got athletes that are versatile. So I think he's going to put the best players on the field. He's
Yeah.
not going to try and force anything when it comes to scheme or anything. I think a lot of these older coaches, and this isn't supposed to be a diss, but they're just stuck in their ways,
Yeah.
right? They're not adaptable. And I think Zach Kittley is adaptable. I think that you've seen that at his 2 previous stops, whether that's Houston Baptist, Western Kentucky. He puts his quarterback and his players in the proper place to succeed. Now, will it always work? No, it's football.
Right.
The other team has something to say about that. But I think when you look at everything he does right, there's a lot more rights than there are wrong. And mostly that's because he is okay with adapting and being okay with being wrong and thinking, okay, this should be our plan. And then you go into the game after those first 20 plays and you see, oh gosh, we're going to have to change everything and do a total 180. I think Zach is okay with doing that when other OCs on campus really haven't been okay with that. And also, I think he's just going to be able to create more space, which is something that Tech desperately needs to create on offense. It feels like last year it was, hey, you're either throwing outside the numbers and not using the middle of the field at all, or you're running straight up the A or B gap, and there's no in between. I think that that's going to change. I know people are probably scared of this, type of play after David Yost, but there will be, the swing passes out in the flat again.
Yeah.
There will be those, but they're going to be more efficient now because you're going to be able to put your athletes there, and it's not just going to be repetitive over and over and over again. You're going to be able to mix those in and not feel like every drive there's, 1 or 2 wide receiver screens, and you're like, dude, what are we doing here? We only had 3 plays. They know what's coming.
That brings me back to the Neil Brown.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think, it's one of those things. I think
screens and whatnot with him.
Yep. And he might get fired after this year. I mean, my goodness.
Possibility.
Not doing well. Maybe Graham Harrell saving JT Daniels too. But I think that's what you can expect most of all from Zach is just the adaptability factor of it and being able to fully know as a fan, person covering the team, whatever, hey, I'm putting the players in the best possible situation to succeed. And I think other coaches have tried to do that, but I think Zach has executed it at a much higher level at 2 stops already.
Yeah. Dustin, kind of same question to you, man. What are you excited for with Zach Kittley that, we might have not seen here on offense maybe since the Cliff days?
Yeah, I'm excited that they're very adamant about, we want to score as many points as possible. They're wearing the 50 burger shirts at practice. And, you just said, RC, he's admitted, I'm going to have the best guys on the field in the best positions. I'm not going to go down swinging with, Taj Brooks on the sideline standing by me or whatever receiver comes out, as that second or third guy or these tight ends. He's not going to hold back just for the sake of his script or whatever. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more, but I think we're going to be very versatile this year with the amount of guys and the size we have at a lot of positions. And we're going to create a lot of good mismatches with him, I believe. And he's admitted, I'm going to go with the guys that are the best for us. And at Western Kentucky, that was our receivers and quarterback.
Yeah.
We didn't have much on the running back and the O-line. And this year might be totally different and the opposite. And so we might see a little more run game than Western Kentucky. So don't everybody fall in love with that too early, too soon. Okay. We're probably going to be a little more balanced this year because our running back room is very good. So I'm very excited to see how he can adapt and use all these pieces because I know a lot of them are unknown, but I think there's a lot of talent on this roster.
Yeah, so RC, kind of keeping with the offense here, what kind of offense are you think we're going to see this year? We got a talented running back room that we're going to get into. We've got a talented quarterback room. We've got a kind of unproven wide receiver core, and then we've got some really exciting tight ends. So if you had to predict now, this Western Kentucky offense threw for 6,000 yards last year. I don't think we're going to see that. Passing,
nowhere near that.
No. Do you see it 60-40 passing? Where's your head at on what this offense is going to look like?
I think it's game to game, man. I think that's it. I think there's going to be games where Tech is going to be throwing 70% of the time, and then there's going to be games where they're running 70% of the time. Again, it comes back to adaptability and just knowing what is working and not getting stuck in your ways. I think, when it comes to passing, it was funny the other day on Twitter. I put hey, would you take this from your quarterback stat line? And I ran a poll, and I don't think people realize that was Tyler Shough's projected numbers, and it was no, I would 100% take that. It's Yeah, you would. He threw for 3,500 yards. The last time a Tech quarterback did that was Nick Shimonek. Think about that. Nick Shimonek. Like, we're talking half a decade ago. So, I mean,
ran those numbers,
from an
I recognized it real quick. I was like, oh, that's what Shough would have had last year.
Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those deals where I think you're right, Dustin, in the sense that the running backs are going to be used because, let's be real, that they'd be stupid not to. I mean, when you have arguably, maybe the second or third best running back room in the conference, why the hell are you not going to use them?
Yep.
You got two proven guys in Brooks and Thompson. You have a 4-star running back as your third string guy in Cameron Valdez. And not to mention Xavier White, who's proven it that he can play at this level as well. So I think when you look at it, it's, they're going to be more adaptable, as I've mentioned a couple times, but I think it's just really going to go game to game. I think when the season is over, percentage-wise, it'll probably be like 57-43 pass rush.
Right.
That's probably my guess. Maybe closer to 55. But these running backs are going to be used not only on the ground, but as well in the passing game. So, that's going to help as well. But the schemes I expect, I think there's going to be 13 personnel out there sometimes where you're going to have 3 tight ends. I think you have them, use them. I think you're going to also see times where there's not a single tight end or running back on the field. Like, you're not going to know. And I think that's the best part about this offense is whatever works best, you're going to see it that day. No matter what, you're not just going to be dead stuck in your ways about running up an A gap or a B gap on 2nd and 8 and frustrated beyond belief watching it. So I think that's really the big thing. But yeah, I think 57-43, maybe 55-45 in terms of percentages pass to run. I think that's probably where we're at.
Yeah, Dustin, I know from us talking about that, that's kind of where your head's at, is where it might not end up being that, but that's where you want it, right? Because you're all bought in on these running backs.
Yeah, and you got 2 really good proven running backs. They're probably your best proven position, especially, even health-wise here and there, but we've had at least one of them throughout the season. So you know what you got in these 2 guys, and that's 2 kind of all-star type running backs, whereas quarterback, you think you have some good pieces there. Receivers, very unknown. Miles Price just hoping to break through, and tight end, you really haven't seen these guys. So your proven guys are at running back. Give them the ball, let them score, let Brooks loose, and see what happens.
Let me loose. I want to be loose. All right, so RC, what are your overall expectations for this first season under Zach Kittley and with this quarterback room?
Yeah, I think I've used this word way too much already this offseason, but just realistic expectations.
Yeah.
I get it. People are drinking the Kool-Aid, and damn it, do it. This is the time to be excited as a Tech fan, and rightfully so.
Sure.
You got a reason. But I think going into the season, realistically, no, you're not going to have the number 1 offense in the Big 12. I don't think. But I think you're going to be much improved in the sense of, it would not shock me if you're in that 4 or 5 range. And I think that it doesn't sound like a lot. I get it. Tech fans are used to, we were running the Big 12 at one point. It's either Oklahoma or us, right? It's not that case anymore. This is more of a defensive league. People got to realize that it's shifted drastically over the past 5 years. Just look at the coaches that were hired. That's all you got to do. Just look at the coaches that were hired, and it will tell you what this league is doing. And I think, you see what's going on. I think for me, expectations on the offensive side, I think you should have a passer between 35 and 37.5 yards. And then rushing, I think you're going to probably rush for about 2,000 to 2,200 yards in that range, give or take. So, yeah, that's probably what I expect. And I think at the end of the day, that probably gets you 4th, maybe even 3rd in the Big 12, considering you don't know what Oklahoma is going to do with their offense. You don't know what West Virginia is going to do. Maybe they're good with Graham Harrell and JT Daniels. Iowa State just lost their best quarterback in program history. Kansas, yeah, exactly. Kansas is Kansas. And then, my dark horse to win the Big 12 is K-State with Skylar Thompson and Deuce Vaughn in the backfield. Maybe they're much improved too. And then you still got to talk about Texas as well. And Steve Sarkisian is an offensive genius. Don't have to like it, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
and then obviously Baylor too. But I think this is the year that I think expectation wise offensively, the numbers aren't going to be as high as you think they should be, but you maybe still finish higher overall in the conference in terms of points per game and yards and everything, because the defense has just shifted so heavily into this conference. It's no longer the Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield chunking the ball up and there's no defenders on the field anymore. Yeah. So you're going to see a lot of games that are probably in that 28, 24, 31, 27 range, which will be a lot more fun and a lot more entertaining in my opinion. But those are my expectations for Tech. I think fourth, probably offensively in the Big 12. I think that's more than fair.
Dustin, to you?
Yeah, I think it's got to be somewhere in there. And obviously, depending on how your receivers pan out, I think it's going to hinge on how much higher or lower that can go. Like I just said, Miles Price is hoping to be the guy, but then you just got a bunch of other dudes that you're not sure about yet. And so I think that can really hinge on breaking into that second or third spot, or you slip into the fifth, sixth or so in that area. So, and obviously your quarterback situation, because you get three quarterbacks that kind of do a little bit of different stuff. So health on that side and how they can grasp Kittley's offense and he uses them. All that kind of stuff matters and shifts throughout the years. And our quarterback health hasn't been the greatest over the last handful of seasons. So fingers are crossed for this one.
Yeah, definitely hoping for health with that. So let's get on into it. Quarterbacks next up in this interview here. So last time you felt this much confidence in a quarterback room, RC, from the top to the third string guy who could be Donovan Smith, Baron Morton. We really don't know at this point. When's the last time you felt kind of like this confidence in a room?
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I don't think anybody's going to be Patrick Mahomes because that's just not fair.
But I mean, after that,
I think, I think, I don't even care who was second. That's how confident I was in Patrick Mahomes at the time in the quarterback position. But it also changes because Cliff was the coach and it felt like he, had a lot more going for him at that point, not in the Alan Bowman years. So, definitely when Patrick Mahomes was on campus, that's the last time I felt confident. Or this confident in the QB room, but this QB room, I mean, I'm trying to think back, early 2000s when you had guys like Sonny Cumbie who had to wait 4 years to play.
Right, BJ.
This is by far the most heralded QB room you've ever had. I mean, by far, you have 2 4-star commits, the highest quarterback recruit ever at your university, and then you got a guy last year that won a bowl game. So, I mean, and then not to mention one of those 4-star recruits in Tyler Shough has already won a Power 5 conference.
Yep.
So, it's by far the deepest quarterback room you've had. At least, I'll say probably ever. It's probably the deepest quarterback room you've ever had.
Yeah, I think you have to agree with that, considering that I think if any 3 of these quarterbacks were starting, you feel confidence in them being able to win you a game, no matter if it's non-conference or conference play. So, quarterback remains unknown right now. We don't know the starter. I think it's starting to look like it's going to be Tyler Shough. If you were paying attention to RC's Twitter, he was tweeting out a bunch of Tyler Shough clips this past week. Think that you're leaning towards Tyler Shough being the starter here. So is that you calling your shot, and is that who you personally want to be the starting quarterback this season for Tech?
Yeah, we're recording this on Sunday, August 14th. I would be not shocked, but pretty surprised if Tyler Shough is not the week 1 starter. From everything I've seen and been told from people with boots on the ground, observing practice and everything and all that, I would be pretty surprised if it's not Tyler Shough. That's just, again, from what I've been told. And also, I think Shough has been wrongly, put in a box almost in a way. I think he's a lot more athletic than people give him credit for. Yeah, just a quick question. Who's the bigger quarterback just physique-wise? Is it Tyler Shough or Donovan Smith?
I think, like, height-wise, I think it's Donovan. And
it's Shough, but your bigger body is Donovan.
What if I told y'all they were the exact same height and weight?
Oh, shit. All right then.
down to like the pound,
Yeah.
down to the pound. They're literally the exact same size. And the crazy part is everybody's talking about Donovan Smith and his athleticism.
Mhm.
Tyler Shough runs a faster 40.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he was
So
really-
like, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, I get it. I like Donovan Smith too. Like you said earlier, you can't go wrong. But I think Tyler Shough kind of got put in a box, and wrongly put in that box, I think, by some. But also at the same time, he was put in a lose-lose situation last year, right? You transfer in, you come in kind of late in the game because of Oregon and their weird, I don't even know how they do school up there. It's like 3 semesters instead of 2. It's very weird. He comes in a little bit late, misses some of spring practice, is there for the spring game. Everybody remembers that. But he was also in a lose-lose situation in the sense that nobody wanted Matt Wells there.
right.
You know what I mean? So like he was kind of like, okay, I'm trying to save a man's job that nobody wants here.
Yeah.
But I think you can't go wrong either way. But again, I think Tyler Shough is that guy. I think he is the guy. Week 1 against Murray State. And as Joey McGuire said, whoever they pick for week 1 against Murray State, he will be the starting quarterback throughout their season. Unless something just obviously, something hits the fan or an injury. But yeah, I think the first snap under center in the shotgun, whatever the hell Zach Kittley calls, it'll be to Tyler Shough.
Yeah, I know me and Dustin both agree. We, went over the offense on Talking Tech, and we both had Shough here. For me personally, I just don't think we were able to see the true Tyler Shough last year. I agree that he was kind of in the box. I don't think Sonny really unleashed him. If you watch those first few games, it was just force feeding, easy, and I get it. He was a really damn good receiver, so you want the ball in his hands, but we never really got to see what I think he can be, and I think Zach Kittley is just the guy to open that up, and so I'm excited for him to actually get a chance to really go out there and try to show his stuff and see why people had him on draft boards when he was coming here. I want to see that version of him. Dustin, you have anything to add on to Tyler Shough here?
Yeah, I want Shough. I think he's your better overall quarterback and your higher upside as well. And I think Joey McGuire said it best too, like during Big 12 Media Day, that we'd be dumb to not use Donovan Smith's kind of Cam Newton-like abilities, in some goal line bigger packages and just run them up your face, especially with him and SaRodorick Thompson back there and your 2 or 3 tight ends and all these 6'5" receivers. Like, that's going to be a hell of a goal line package back there. And that's just using the guys you have, like we say with Kittley. And so I think Shough is your main quarterback and your go-to guy. And then Donovan is ready in the waiting if there's an injury and is a goal line kind of package type guy, which is totally fine for now.
Yeah, I agree. That there's just a lot of talent there, and like Donovan Smith is a very interesting quarterback, and he's going to be used at certain times. So it'll be interesting to see that. So I have an over under here, RC, and kind of you talking earlier, sounds like you're going to go under here, but I want you to know how I got up to this number. So I have Tyler Shough over under 4,500 pass yards. So I took basically those numbers that you posted on your Twitter of what his average was last season, and I threw in throwing the ball about 10 more attempts per game, because last year he was averaging about 30 attempts per game. So to account for Zach Kittley's kind of more pass-heavy offense, I threw in about 10 more passes a game at his 69% clip completion rate. That's about 27 passes completed a game. He was averaging about 13 yards per completion. Take all that, it's about 330, 340 yards a game. Times 12 was about 4,512 yards. So that was just throwing in 10 more passes a game, which is how I came up with that. Do you think that's a reasonable number there? Because earlier I heard you talking about maybe 3,700 yards or in that range.
Yeah, I think I don't hate the process of you getting to that number, to be honest. I just think it's probably too high. And the reason being is the running backs. That's what it comes down to. If you only had one good running back in Dodge Brooks, maybe. I think 45 is a little too high still. But I also think that the reason, I guess there's two faults to this, right? Like, you're right. They're going to pass more just because they're going to have more plays. Like, that's just it. Like, you're not going to have as many 3-and-outs. You're going to have more opportunities to pass. If you had Eric Izakama, I think you could get close to that number. Maybe not 45, but you could talk me into maybe like
4,000.
4250.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could talk me into that. That's probably best case scenario. But I think this season, and maybe this isn't fair to me, or not fair to me, but fair to Tyler Shough or whoever the starting quarterback is, I would be pretty surprised if they got over 4,000 passing yards. Like, any of them.
Yeah.
And the reason being, again, it all comes back to the running backs and just what do you have at the wide receiver position outside of Miles Price? I think you're going to be more efficient offensively too, which takes away reps and takes away opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. So, personally, if I will take the under on the 45, but I think I'd probably say like 37.5, 3,800 in that range for the passing yards. And again, I'll probably shock y'all when it comes to the rushing numbers. I'll say that.
All right. Here for that. Dustin, I know you were under when we did this last time. Are you still remaining under on that?
Yeah, and I'm under, and just from what RC said and I've hinted to before is I hope we're more balanced and use the running attack more and better in a good way, not because of injuries or inefficiencies anywhere else, but I just hope it's more balanced and running the ball because we can. I mean, we saw what both those guys could do against Mississippi State when they were averaging 8 yards a carry, and that was a lot of fun. So I hope we can do a little more of that and not have to rely on passing for 350, 400 yards a game just to hang in there.
Pass touchdowns, I did 34.5 for Shough. RC, over, under. What do you think?
Passing?
Yeah.
Just strictly passing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll probably take the under.
Same.
Yeah.
But it's close. That one's close. I'd probably say like 31. But I think he gets over 34.5 total. I think he probably gets to like 37.
Yeah, if he's
rushes 6 in, something like that.
Especially with like the RPO type plays that you can run with him and his ability to read defenses with that.
You're talking dirty to me when you say RPOs, man. You're talking dirty to me when you say RPO. I'm telling you.
Dustin,
dude, I freaking love them.
Okay, so let's just make it 34.5. Or where would you put that number if you're taking passing and rushing? What would you say would be a fair over under for that? Shough, yeah.
I think you're close. I think 35.5.
35?
Yeah, I think you're like right there. Yeah.
So would you go over or under on that, counting rushing?
Over.
Over?
Over. Yeah. I think, again, I'm interested in, obviously we don't know how Donovan Smith is going to be used, and we're assuming here that Tyler Shough is the quarterback, right? But let's say Donovan Smith, and he will be used in goal line stuff. I'm curious to see how much that
impact
is interpreted into the offense, because obviously that will take away opportunities from Shough. But I think realistically, you're just going to be more efficient. I think there's just going to be more open space. And when you put playmakers in space, typically good things happen.
Yeah.
And fluke plays happen in terms of like, how the hell did that guy get open for a 75-yard touchdown? And then boom, there's a touchdown at 75 yards for him. I think that's going to happen a little bit more. So yeah, I think I'd probably take the over on the 35.5, but I mean, ever so slightly. I feel like just absolute capped for Tyler Shough. And again, this is me limiting him. Obviously, he can go well past it. But I think my limit going into the season is like 38 total touchdowns.
Okay. Dustin, are you 35.5 rushing and passing touchdowns for Tyler Shough? Where are you at?
Yeah, that makes it a lot harder to try to figure out. And
I think it's a tough one because, like we've talked about, we don't know how Donovan Smith would be used in those packages.
Yeah.
But also, you have two big-ass tight ends that we're going to get to talking about later. We're going to have so many options.
There's so many options.
You are in the red zone.
You got to think like Sir Roderick Thompson.
Really, 3 big tight ends.
Sir Roderick Thompson played like, just over a third of the season last year, and maybe not even half, and he ran it in all the time. And so it's like, I don't know. I guess I'd take it just over, just in hopes that the offense is good,
Yeah. I think that's where I'm at. I'll take the over because if we're over on that, that means this offense is clicking, and we're seeing that success, and Zach Kittley is dialing it up. And so I'll take the over on that. Let's get into the running backs now. This RC is saying he's got some good numbers for us, so let's get into it. So, RC, this is the best Texas Tech running back room since when, in your opinion?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, early 2000s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild. I mean, how good they are. Like, legitimately, it's you're literally talking about a 4-star recruit as your third option.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this guy could literally start on probably like 12 to 15 Power 5 teams right now, and he's your third guy, and you don't know how much he's going to play just because you have Taj Brooks and Sir Thompson.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those deals where, you know, everybody's thinking, oh, my gosh, there's going to be so much passing in this offense, which is true. There's going to be a little bit more. But I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with how efficient the run game is, because the way that Zach Kittley runs the football is similar to a Sean McVay type style, which is a zone running scheme, a zone blocking scheme, which means you don't have to have the best offensive line in the world. You just don't. Right. But they know how to create space. And when you give Taj Brooks and Sir Thompson space, we've already seen what they can do. Perfect example was Taj Brooks last year against Houston, who you will now play in week 2 at home. But you played him in week 1, and I mean, he ran for over 100 yards, just absolutely dominated the Cougars. Toon throwing 4 picks obviously helped too. But, you know, you get these guys in space, and I think it's one of those deals where, you know, Dustin, you brought it up earlier. What's the deepest position group on this team? I don't think it's close. It's running back. Yeah. Like it's one of those deals for me where, you know, you got some secondary type stuff, and I know we're just talking about the offense, but I don't really care either side of the football. Running back is your deepest position group, and you could legitimately put your 4th string running back out there, Xavier White, and I would be perfectly okay with him out there in terms of, hey, I need you to run through the A gap or B gap. Like, hey, can you run out in the flat? I'm fine with it. He's proven it, right? Like, I think people forget the K-State game he had a few years ago where he rushed for over 100 yards. Like, I don't think it's the guy you want consistently. But as your 4th-string running back, that's stupid. It's just dumb.
Yeah. And you got Blake Bledwell, who was SMU running back, who's in that range too.
Yeah. And we didn't even bring up Chad Townsend, who can still play out of the backfield. He's not technically listed as a running back anymore. Yeah, technically a wide receiver, but he transferred in here from Alabama as a running back.
Yeah.
So you have 6 guys that can play in the backfield that, first and foremost, know how to rush the football, but even better, know how to catch. That's something that's going to be pivotal in this offense. So for me, I mean, it's the deepest running back room, I mean, at least since the early 2000s, at least.
Yeah, I think back to like Torian Henderson and Johnny Mack, those kind of days when you had both of those guys.
That was the name that came to my head too. Yep.
And those were really fun. And Torian is kind of one of those guys who just, I think, gets super underrated, but how consistent he was. What I just think back to is, and we kind of brought it up, is the bowl game last year. That was the one game that both of those guys were 100% healthy, and Mississippi State couldn't do anything to stop them. It was Taj Brooks gashing him here, Sir Thompson gashing him here. They ran for almost 200 yards total. And so if you can have both of those guys super healthy, like, I mean, that's a force. So Dustin, same kind of question to you. Are you on board with us, Torian, or is there another running back room that this kind of reminds you in? And what are your thoughts on this running back room in general?
Yeah, I can't remember specifics because the running backs over Tech history don't really stick out.
Like DeAndre Washington and Justin Stockton, I think, are kind of up there just because DeAndre Washington was in that group
good. Too. There was a group with, I can't remember like the years. There's like a Shannon Woods and another big back that were really good.
Baron Batch, the 08 year.
Yeah. Those guys were really good together with what all they could do. That's kind of what it reminds me of with
that's a good one.
Sir Roderick, and then a kind of all-purpose back in Brooks. Remind me of those two guys, and we're very good and efficient using those guys out of the backfield in every which way you could. And so I'm very excited for them. I just hope we get more of them together health-wise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's key. There was games where it was just Brooks. There was games where it was just Thompson last year. And so the stats were kind of weird at the end of the season. Right. you ended up having SaRodorick Thompson leading the team in carries with like 109, but then Taj Brooks led the team in rushing with a little over 500. So RC to you, do you think it's going to be similar this year where maybe SaRodorick leads the team in carries or Taj Brooks leads the team in rushing? What's your prediction on that? Who leads the team in carries? Who leads the team in rushing by the end of this season?
I think it might be flipped on carries. I think Taj probably gets more carries.
Okay.
I think SaRodorick's going to be used more in the pass game. I think when it comes down to it, I legitimately have like a 50-50 split for these guys.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, maybe not all of the rushing yards, but how close they will be at the end of the season. Last year you think about it, and they were pretty close last year. Texas Tech as a team ran for just over 2,000 yards. I want to say it was like 21, maybe close to 22. 2,200 yards. Maybe I feel like it was like 2176 or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
but I'm in the ballpark.
Yeah, I think it was about 2,100 because I remember going back and looking. Yeah, we had 2,068 rushing yards. I got this year. So yeah, 2,068 total.
Right around 21. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think you add like 200 or 300 yards to that this year, pretty easily. Which again, I think would surprise some people because Zach Kittley passing Western Kentucky. Right. Houston Baptist. Listen, the reason he didn't run at those two schools is because he didn't have the talent like he did in this running back room. It's that simple.
SaRodorick Thompson.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you're asking me who leads the group in yards, rushing yards, I'm going to take Taj Brooks, and I think he leads in carries too. But I think it's like, Taj Brooks is at 100 and let's say, just to make the math easy for me, 130 carries. SaRodorick is at like 123. And then, it's like that. It's like, it's so minuscule. It's like they both did. Who cares? And then I think really the difference in terms of who leads the team in rushing is who has more big time plays, right? Like that, whether that's Brooks or Thompson, because again, it's going to be so close. It's almost perfect in the sense of what you're trying to do because they offer different things, but they also do everything really well. Like they're not like Brooks isn't good at one thing. Great at one thing. Thompson really isn't great at one thing either, but they're good at everything enough where it's not like a total disaster if they're on the field. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use them in packages. But I fully expect there to be packages on the field where you've got two running backs, and then a tight end and two wide receivers. I expect that honestly not to be their base package, but they'd be stupid not to use it just because of the talent level of Thompson and Brooks and what they can, pressure wise put on a defense.
Yeah, Dustin, question to you: Do you have somebody leading the team in yards that's different in carries? Where's your head at on those?
I know, and RC nailed it. Like I think they're both gonna do both of those things really well, and I hope they're both that close because that means we got both of them for most of the year, and health wise was good, and that will just excel this team even more. I don't think anyone's gonna edge the other one out just based off talent and production on the field. Because I think both of them are going to do an excellent job, especially with what Kittley's going to put them in position to do. So I couldn't tell you who's going to flip a coin and just give me one. Like I couldn't tell you who's going to be better and get more of which one.
I think for me, it wouldn't shock me if it's similar to last year because I think Brooks has more of the potential to have those breakout plays. He had several of them last year. And I think SaRodorick might get more carries because he is bigger and might get some more of that goal line carries, some more of those inside the red zone stuff. But, it's not going to shock me if they're just 5 carries off from each other and, couple like 50 yards off of each other. That's what I really hope for. And like you said, hope for health with these guys. So RC, you kind of already got into who could be another X factor in the running back room in Cameron Valdez. So kind of what do you expect from him and some of these other guys in that room behind these two? Because, obviously they've been here for several years, and Brooks and Thompson, they're the leaders in that room, but you've also got young guys trying to make an impression here early on in their careers.
Yeah, I think Cameron Valdez is going to be interesting to see exactly how they utilize him. Just because you have two guys ahead of him that are so established. He can do everything, though. I've seen some tape on him. I've talked to people that covered him in high school. I mean, like he's the complete guy. He watching some of his tape, it feels like DeAndre Washington almost in a way. So obviously that would be cool for Tech to have. But I think when we're talking about the X factor, he's definitely that guy. But looking at the remaining running backs, you mentioned it already in the SMU transfer. I don't know how much he's actually going to get to play.
Right.
More of a special teams guy probably. But the guy I'm most interested in terms of how do they utilize him, especially with the wide receiver room that is so inexperienced outside of Miles Price in terms of actual production, is Xavier White. I'm very interested to see. I mean, this man has moved back and forth between wide receiver and running back, it seems like every year. But I think he's the kind of guy that you can use. And Chad Townsend, too. I know that they moved him to wide receiver officially, but in my mind, he's still a running back. I think you're going to see him in the backfield sometimes on those jet sweeps. I think you're going to see him in the punt return game really making an impact as well. Maybe the kickoff return game. I think that King might actually be the punt returner this year, the true freshman, which is either exciting to you or scary, one of the two.
Yeah.
But I think overall, those are the guys obviously behind those two. But if you're asking me who I'm most interested in watching from a pure on the field, how are they utilized type role, it's Xavier White, just because I know what Cameron Valdez can do. I just want to see how they kind of use Xavier White almost as a chess piece in a way. It wouldn't shock me if he's lined up out wide, right next to a tight end. Like, I mean, you can use him almost any way you want.
Dustin, same question to you.
Yeah, I don't know about X Factor, but I feel better with Cameron Valdez being your third running back if one of these other guys do go down like last year. Like, I didn't feel good. I was never comfortable with Xavier White in the backfield last year. Now, he's explosive and got some moves and stuff, but running him in between the tackles was never comfortable, and he had some fumbling problems here and there. And so I like him being used more as kind of a wide receiver hybrid type guy, just get him out in space a lot better. So I like having Cameron Valdez as your third running back to help with injuries or whatever might happen, concussion one game here or there. Like, your spot backup running back is, I think, at a higher level than what it has been in the years past.
Yeah, I'm with RC. I am curious to see how they are going to use Xavier White. We all know nowadays that wide receiver, running back is just a position. Like, if you watch the NFL, Debo Samuel just getting used as a running back. Like, these guys who are talented, you want to put the ball in their hands. So, him and Chad Townsend, they're just trying to find ways to get on the field with a loaded running back room. And so I kind of do expect to see them a lot at receiver, but they do have a lot of experience lining up back there with the quarterback. So it's not going to shock me to see them all over the field. A lot of intriguing options. So, RC, I'm going to kick it over to you here because you said you got some running back numbers for us. So I'm just going to throw out my over-unders because I'm betting that you got higher than those. So let us know what your running back numbers that you got that you're saying are way up there.
Well, I mean, you just look at it last year, right? Where do y'all think Texas Tech finished in rushing in the Big 12, 1 through 10? Just out of curiosity.
Let's see. So we're comparing against Texas, who had Bijan and another pretty good running back there, Deuce Vaughn,
Baylor and Ebner as well.
Baylor, Oklahoma State had a pretty good back. I would say fourth. I'd say fourth or fifth.
See, you just nailed my fun stat right there, Dustin. You stole it.
I was thinking way lower. I was thinking
stole it. Texas Tech,
eighth, honestly.
Well, Texas Tech had more rushing yards than Kansas State last year.
No way. Okay. Wow.
So that was because you think about it, Deuce Vaughn and those guys
right?
like that, like K-State just runs the football. Texas Tech had more rushing yards than K-State last year. I think when you look at it, just from a total team standpoint, I think Texas Tech finishes top 4, top 5 in rushing this year, and I think they go over 2,300 yards. And it wouldn't shock me if at, maybe this team gets like 2,500 yards. Yeah, and the reason I'm saying that is it's kind of shocking is you look at last year's number and you talk about Oklahoma State, who is a very good running team. They ran for 26, and they were third in the conference. So I think Texas Tech can get there. But the reason I think that's so kind of surprising to myself, honestly, you mentioned it. They don't have a, everybody knows this guy running back in the conference, right? Like maybe some Big 12 people, at Iowa State know who Taj Brooks and Taraji Thompson are, but they're not universally known within the conference. And so I think that's going to be super telling. There's going to be more open lanes. I think rushing will come a lot easier at first for Texas Tech than people think because it's going to be opening up space for the wide receivers is going to be the focus, right? But I think that the running backs and their experience really help. And don't be surprised if the left side of the offensive line is the way they go with Caleb Rogers and then Cole Spencer, who hopefully can get back healthy here from his knee injury. They're going to be running to the left side of the line a lot this year.
Dustin, are you with him on that?
Yeah, I agree. And I've been very big on using those running backs because they're your experienced guys, but also I see us using these tight ends and having huge packages out there. And we're just going to say, hey, you match up with it. If you put safeties on these tight ends to try to cover their receiving ability, we're going to run it up at you. It's going to be like the Patriots back when they had the two really good tight ends, like 10 years ago, Gronk and Hernandez. Like you couldn't match up with them. And so I see that as a very good chess piece with using our running backs and tight ends to supplement the pass game with those guys and just create mismatches. And with the O-line and those three giant tight ends, like we're just going to try to be bigger and muscle people a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too, RC. I think when you look at the Big 12 this year and some of those teams, Baylor lost their top running backs, Oklahoma State lost theirs. I think you have the third best running back room in the conference and maybe total room. Maybe you have the best because behind Texas, Bijan is Roderick, is Brooks better than their backup? I think we're probably better than the backup behind Deuce Vaughn. So I think you have a really good shot of being the third best rushing team in the conference with these two guys leading the way as long as they remain healthy. But let's go ahead and get into the wide receiver part of things. This is one of the most kind of unknown groups when you're talking about position groups at Texas Tech. You have Miles Price, who a lot of people are high on, but last year I think he only had about 500 yards receiving. Other than that, you didn't have anybody else go over 200 yards. So it's a relatively unknown group, a relatively unproven group. But let's go ahead and dive in on Miles Price from the slot position. What are your expectations for him? Are you as high on him as everybody else, and are you expecting him to really blow up this year?
I don't know. I guess it would depend on what's your definition of blow up.
So,
to be honest.
I think so. I'll go ahead and get into it like what I have for his over under here. 1,200 yards receiving. The leading receiver for Western Kentucky last year had 1,900 yards. Their second leading receiver had 1,400 yards. So him, because I also want to be realistic. We haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver in, I think, since Antoine Wesley. So 1,200 yards over under 10 TDs, kind of in that range is what I'm thinking right now.
I think under on the yards, not by much. I'd probably say like 1,100.
Yeah.
He's going to be the guy that leads this team in receiving. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. As long as he stays healthy, he's the guy.
Yeah.
But I think probably like 1,100, just below that. And the TDs is the interesting part to me because we talk about the size and the on the outside and at the tight end position and how deep the running back position is as well. Miles Price, for me, in my opinion, a lot of his touchdowns have to come in that, like, just outside of the red zone range.
Right.
where it's like, you're on like the 32-yard line and he just makes a guy miss and he's in the end zone.
Yeah.
Like,
He just
or
breaks
just a
coverage.
broken play for 75 yards. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So 10 is honestly a really good number. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to say push.
All right. I like
Didn't
that.
give me a half, so I'm going to say push.
Dustin, where are you with Miles Price's numbers here? I tried to come up with good numbers, knowing that most of these guys haven't reached them here at Tech, and so it's hard to come up with things that you think, like, if I'm a bookie, would this be something that I would get money on? Is this a fair line? And so that's what I was trying to come up with.
It's difficult too, because you don't know exactly what the offense is going to look like.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
don't know. You're just trying to like throw something at a board and hopefully not look crazy. I think those are actually good numbers, though.
Yeah, and I'll go under on both of those, mainly because I think our offense is going to be way more balanced. And like I said, you just got a lot of other options at running back. You're going to hopefully run the ball a little more. You shouldn't have to throw for 6,000 yards and a 1,900-yard receiver like Western Kentucky. Yeah. But hopefully he still gets over 1,000 and breaks that, gets into that group of great Tech receivers. And the under on the touchdowns, just because, I mean, if you start listing out better our options inside the 10-yard line, I mean, he's, fifth, sixth in line on that? Like, you got two quarterbacks that are higher up that can run those RPOs, two running backs, two tight ends. You got, two 6'5" wide receivers that are a little better goal line options for those kind of passes. I don't want to throw the Jakeem Grant fade jump ball like we used to to him. So I'll take the under there just because I hope there's better options for us. And I totally agree with RC. He's just got to be that, outside the 20, 25 or the big play type guy and just break one. But I can totally see him, and RC, tell me if you're with me here, having a Jakeem Grant type year at that slot position with Kittley's offense and being one of these Texas Tech great slot receivers that we talk about for years to come.
I think he's going to be a really good, almost like security blanket in a way. I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find a guy that's as shifty as Jakeem Grant. So I don't like putting that label on him. But in terms of role, I think he's going to have a similar role to Jakeem Grant, where they're going to utilize him in a multitude of ways. Don't be surprised if he's in the backfield at all. I've heard some fun play designs they've had with him in practice. And then also at the same time, I think when you look at what he's going to do, he's going to be that guy in the middle of the field for you, where he's not going to go deep a lot, but when he does, it could be impactful, but it's to clear out maybe as a disguise. But he's also going to be that guy that can go across the middle and you just do a little dump off right there for it's maybe like a 4 or 5 yard throw, but he takes it 24. It's that kind of deal. I think that's who he's going to be. He's going to have a lot of catches this year. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I think that he's going to have a very, very good year. And again, the only way I think that he gets to that over in terms of the 10 TD number is just if he just starts making people look stupid and start, people making people miss. So, but I think 10 is a good number. I think he clears 1,000 yards if he stays healthy. Obviously, this is all predicated on health, but I think he is by far the number one wide receiver for Texas Tech, and I think there is a pretty sizable gap to that next tier, just because we haven't seen him produce at the Power 5 level.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go over on those 1,200 yards, but I'm also going to stay under just because I realize all the other touchdown weapons that we have, and like we've pointed out, it's going to have to be him breaking away, and I expect him to get a lot of those. I expect him to blow the top off a couple secondaries this season, but to double digit wise, I don't really see that just yet. But let's get into the other guys, a bunch of relatively unproven guys. So RC, who are some of the guys that you're kind of looking at to step up here? Of course, we got Emmett Jones returning as the wide receivers coach, and a guy I think a lot of when Emmett Jones was here was Antoine Wesley's jump. From the 2017 season to the 2018 season, he had 10 catches for 137 yards in 2017, 0 touchdowns. Next season, he had 88 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So, returning
Still
guys,
didn't
we
get
got Loic
drafted.
Fungee, Trey Cleveland, J.J. Sparkman. Is there any guys on this kind of, that were here these last few years that you think that could take a similar leap to what Antoine Wesley did? Now, obviously, those are crazy numbers, so I'm not expecting that, but some sort of jump, like that.
Oh, Trey Cleveland.
That's your guy?
Yeah, he's Trey Cleveland. He's the guy where if he's on the field and earns the reps, obviously, because there's so much competition at this position.
Oh, yeah.
But if he's on the field, he's the guy I am most confident in taking a sizable leap. I've seen it in practice last year where I remember when I was working for Red Raider Sports, I was talking to Brandon Solis when we were covering spring, and I was like, why the hell is this man not on the field more? Like, what are we doing here? There was a throw that from Tyler Shough where, I'll be honest, it was an okay throw. It wasn't one where you're just like, whoa, But Trey Cleveland made a play on it where he went up and over Rashad Williams and caught it one-handed
Your best
in a way.
point.
And I was like, why is he not on the field more? Like, what's going on here? And it's fine. I know it's one play. Everybody can, even a blind squirrel can find a nut or whatever that old white person saying is, as I say it. But, it's one of those deals where he has everything you want. You think about it. He's 6'4", just runs like a gazelle. I mean, he's unbelievable in everything that he does. He's a junior. If it doesn't happen for him this year, I don't know if it does. I'll just be honest. But he has all the tools for it. But the guy that I'm most interested in looking at and watching this year, by far, not even close for Texas Tech, is Loic Fungee. If that man can stay healthy, I think he has a chance to really make a true impact. And again, it all comes down to health for this guy. But he is the perfect wide receiver in this kind of environment. Again, he's 6'4", 210, runs like a gazelle, but he's just got a lot of I don't know how to say this the right way, but I guess it's one of those deals where it's like he's got TJ Vasher-like traits.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's got more control over his body, if that makes sense, when I've seen him healthy. But again, it all comes down to health. He's had a big time struggle staying healthy, but definitely Trey Cleveland and Loic Fungee. Those are the two guys that I am most interested to see. And J.J. Sparkman's pretty good too, but those are the two guys that I think if we're talking about wide receivers that take that next step and are healthy, it's going to be one of those two guys.
Dustin, you kind of pointed that Loic Fungee was your guy there, so go in on him and why you think he has that breakout potential.
Loic Fungee's my guy. He had some big play flashes towards the end of last year and made some huge plays and kind of made you kind of raise your eyebrow and make note of who he is. And so I think him going to get more regular reps now that Easy's gone. And then the other guy you mentioned, J.J. Sparkman, he had some of those plays also last year. And so I think now with this new offense and Price spread the ball out a little more, since there's Miles Price, but on the outside, it's a wide open competition with a lot of dudes, which is a good thing also. I mean, we have size. We got 6'4", and 6'4", and 6'5", and 6'5". So we got a lot of athletic.
5 guys over 6'4".
We got a lot of athletic big dudes, so that's going to be great to watch. And it's not like, it's like you're going to sub one in for the other, and it's like the corner's going to look at me like that's the same dude. He's just as big. Yeah. And so,
I've gotten Sparkman and Cleveland confused with each other so many times because they look pretty much exactly the same. Like we kind of mentioned earlier,
the slot position is going to be kind of fun to watch. With Miles Price, he's going to be a little bit everywhere, but how does Xavier White more fit into a full-time-ish role there, but also throwing him in the backfield and jet sweeps, and he's going to be doing a little bit of everything. And then Townsend also is kind of in that same position of going from running back, athlete, receiver, slot guy. So there's a couple guys that can interchange there also behind Miles.
The guy to watch, though, real quick, is Jordan Brown from SMU. That transfer, walk-on transfer. he's having a really good camp, and I know that Tyler Shough, Donovan Smith, Barrett Morton, it doesn't matter who's throwing the football. They absolutely love the kid. So I think that that's a guy to watch. I don't know how much he's going to play, but when he's on the field, he has the chance to make an impact for sure. He's one of those guys where he's a walk-on, but it's just because of the scholarship crunch. He will be a scholarship player here pretty soon at Texas Tech.
Yeah, he's been a highlight factory. Like if you watch their, practice highlights and stuff, he's had several of those. The couple names I'll throw out that I'm really interested to watch this year, Jaron Bradley. I'm curious to see him in this second year and how he performs. He was another guy who only had limited, receptions last year, but he had some of those kind of wow plays that you could see that potential. So I'm curious what kind of leap he makes from year 1 to year 2. And then the transfer, Brady Boyd. I'm very excited to see what he does. He's another guy that you've seen have some highlights being posted on that. Looks like he's going to be a factor there too, and has, like we said, this is open competition for all these guys. And so who's going to step up? There's a lot of different candidates for it. So I'm excited to see them. So back to the coach, Emmett Jones returns. We've, very familiar with him. He spent a lot of time here. So RC, what does it mean for you to have Emmett Jones coming in with this young receiving core? How important do you think his hire was for Joey McGuire and the staff?
Oh, it's critical. A guy that knew Texas Tech already, the ins and out of it. Yeah. Joe McGuire's talked about that too, where he was trying to keep guys or bring back guys that knew about this university here, because that's one less thing he has to worry about in the sense of a new guy coming in and trying to learn the ins and out of this university. Like Emmett Jones knows Texas Tech already. So that's a very big thing. Also, the recruiting aspect of it. There's not very many better recruiters in Dallas, in the DeSoto, in the just DFW area in general. Emmett Jones is absolutely electric. But from a coaching standpoint as well, there's a reason that Kansas made this man the interim head coach when Les Miles, inevitably left, right? Like, there's a reason for that. This guy is a well-respected, highly accredited coach at every level he's been in. Remember, high school football coach, too. There you go, another one for Joey McGuire. But he just produces. He produces guys to get them to maybe not their full potential, whether that's just because of a quarterback, offensive line, whatever it is. But he gets the most out of his position group and helps those guys be in the right situation and prepared for different types of, scheme, whether that's, zone, man, whether if they're talking about single high safety, double high safety, okay, they're using, the star position to come down. He's going to come down and look like he's blitzing, but he's actually coming up to chip block you on a slant route, whatever it may be, right? He has guys ready. And I think that that's the biggest thing about Emmett Jones is, looking at what wide receivers have done the past few years, and to be fair, it's really not their fault with the quarterback situation. It's just kind of left you like wanting more. I think you'll have a little bit of that this year with Emmett Jones, just because there will be more rushing. But I think also wide receivers will have a far more heavy impact on the success and the sustained success of Texas Tech offense, because Emmett Jones knows which guys do X right, or knows what guys do Y right, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think about Emmett Jones. But I mean, the biggest thing for him is obviously the coaching aspect of it, but he knew Texas Tech, and he's an elite recruiter. I mean, just simple and plain, an elite recruiter.
Yeah. I think he definitely raises the ceiling for this room. I think you add him in and all these relatively kind of unknown guys, I think he does raise the ceiling for what they can be. So I'm super pumped to have him back. Dustin, what are your thoughts on the return of Emmett Jones?
RC, I had mentioned that too, that bringing back a former Texas Tech coach was a big deal. And I heard Joe McGuire on an interview the other day mention that, he kept the football operations guy for that same reason, is because he didn't want that person coming in having to learn what they need to do with Texas Tech at the same time as him. Like, that helps bridge that gap of everything. And then I think, kind of like you mentioned, he's a great recruiter for finding talent, but then his development, I think, has always been a really good key thing. And what that is on the field in the locker room, I don't know, but it's always shown and been proven. I mean, Brooks just mentioned our Antoine Wesley numbers that blew up like crazy. And we have guys, there's been years in the past that we've had similar receiver rooms that we're like, we don't really know who some of these guys might be. And then, boom, 1, 2, 3 of them just kind of are really solid throughout the whole year. And so it's good to know what you're getting in one of your assistant coaches like that and bringing back a familiar face.
So Zach Kittley had 2 wide receivers go over 1,000 yards last year. I know we're all in on the Miles Price going over 1,000. RC, is there any way in your mind that you think that we could possibly have 2 guys reach that number? No. Yeah. I think if there's a second guy, and we'll get into that here, I think it might be a tight end. So let's go into the tight end room. Best tight end room ever at Texas Tech. I mean, full room. I think you have to give Jason Morrow that nod as being that. But he wasn't, to me, he just that big Travis Kelce-like wide receiver. So what are your thoughts on this tight end room?
I think it might be the most versatile tight end room Texas Tech has had.
Best
overall skill-wise. I mean, if you look at, the recruiting rankings, it has to be just because Baylor Cupp is the highest regarded tight end ever, according to 24/7. I mean, I think it's the most versatile. I mean, I don't know if you've asked this already, and maybe I just answered it wrong, but my answer for who is the most interesting player on Texas Tech's entire roster, defense, offense, special teams, whatever, is by far Baylor Cupp. By far. It's not even it's not a conversation, because I think he's a guy where I have no idea what to expect. Nothing. I don't know. Everything is there trait-wise. Everything is there physique-wise. But I have no idea what to expect. It would not shock me if Baylor Cupp has 2 catches this season. It would also not shock me if he has 45.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect. And so he's the guy that I think can I do know this about him. He's going to block like hell. So there's that in him. But from a receiving standpoint, I have legitimately no idea what the hell to think. I have no idea, let alone as if he's going to stay on the field and be healthy, because he's had 2 pretty big injuries in his career. And there's a reason he transferred from A&M was because they were not trying to get him out the door, but just pretty much sending him a message hey, we got some younger tight ends here. You're not going to see the field a lot, bud. I mean, I think in terms of just strictly versatile, by far the most versatile tight end room you've seen. Best tight end room, I don't know. I think Jason Morrow. I mean, I don't even care who was behind him. It's just hard to say that, it's a better tight end room than that guy. I'll say this, I don't even think these tight ends match his best season, yardage-wise combined.
I can see that.
Yeah, Dustin, you go in on this tight end room and kind of what your thoughts are about it.
The tight end room in that group is my favorite going into this year, because the size we have in Baylor Cupp at 6'7" and Mason Tharp at 6'9" is incredible. And then you had Mason Tharp out there as a true freshman a lot last year. No, he didn't have all the catches and stuff, but he was a stud, true freshman going out there, and he is a hell of a blocker as well. And so I mentioned it earlier with the running backs, but the mismatches you can create with these 2 guys and their athleticism, blocking ability, and catching, and throw in Zach Kittley and his creative mind, it's going to give D coordinators and linebackers, defensive backs, safeties nightmares of having to match up personnel. And then on the what do you do on the field? Are they going to run it? Are they going to throw it? And we mentioned the goal line packages we can do with those guys. It's going to be incredible what we can do. And I mean, RC, you're totally right. We don't know. We shouldn't set too high of expectations for Baylor Cupp just yet because of the injuries, but it's hard not to get a little itch of what could be though.
For sure. You see the 5 stars, man.
You can
you see the 5 stars.
You can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you just want to run to it. And so you see it there, and I saw it with Mason Tharp last year. I thought, like, just getting him on the field a lot to block and being like, maybe his coordination and catching's not there yet, but he got a lot of snaps last year that I thought are really valuable going into this year. And so they're my favorite position group of the whole team for this year because the ceiling can be so high. Like, I don't even know where it could be. But it just also leads into everybody else having great success too.
Yeah, I love tight ends, especially like nowadays. You look at several of the best teams in the NFL, and the Chiefs, Travis Kelce, like, is obviously the easiest example for that, and how he is utilized and how he opens up that offense for the receivers. Most of the most successful NFL teams have a tight end like that can really create and create other space. So I'm really looking forward to having these weapons. RC, how do you think Kittley's going to use these guys this year? Do you think they're going to like constantly tight end every single play, or like what are your expectations for Kittley and how he's going to use this deep tight end room? Because we're not even talking about Teeter, who is going to be on the field and getting snaps as well. So that's 3 tight ends that you're going to be able to use.
You name it, they're going to use it that way. I mean, I truly believe it. For me, Henry Teeter might be the most interesting one.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of versatility, I think Baylor Cupp is obviously the guy that I'm most intrigued to watch. But from a versatility standpoint, don't be surprised. I mean, Henry Teeter's your fullback, but he's playing tight end. And so you're going to see a lot. I think I tweeted this out the other day with Tyler Shough. I think you're going to see the tight ends used in motion a lot and then run out to the flat, or maybe they run a Texas route where they just put their foot in the ground and then they head left or right, just at a 90-degree angle, right? Like I think they're used like that a lot because I think all these guys are athletic enough to do it. And I also think that if need be, they can serve as a chip block right there. Just like as an extra lineman for that split second where you make sure that D end is going into the left tackle or the right tackle, and that gives your quarterback a better chance of succeeding, right? And then worst case scenario, your tight end is just that outlet right at the end. It's like, well, I can just throw at this guy. Maybe it's just at his feet to make sure we don't get an intentional grounding, but also, okay, we got 3 or 4 yards out of it. It's better than getting nothing. I think that you're going to see those guys used in the vertical passing game, especially Mason Tharp. Mason Tharp, I know Baron Morton was in the class last year, but Mason Tharp was by far the recruit that I thought would have the biggest impact for Texas Tech as a true freshman. And, you could argue if that was true, but he's definitely in the conversation. But I think that you have guys that can do it all. But for me, you feel really good about having 3 tight ends, but what happens if Baylor Cupp can't go? How do you feel about this room with 2, right? Like that's kind of my mindset with it. And I think a lot has to change if you only have 2. But with 3, I think you could literally go into Pandora's box and pull out anything you wanted to do with any of them, and it could work. But with 2, I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence,
but I'm still so high on Mason Tharp and his potential and just that size. I mean,
no doubt,
6'9" at that size, and his athleticism and his ability to get out there is really impressive. And those few glimpses we got his freshman year, you're just like, man, the potential on this guy is wild. I mean, you just think about it. We could just go throw 3 tight ends out there instead of receivers. Like we could just go throw.
That's what I've always compared this to. Is what Iowa State started 3 or 4 years ago. Thank God those guys have graduated. They can't rely on them, but they created such bad mismatches for us.
Mm-hmm. So Dustin,
I want to throw another name in there too, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't forget Jaden York. He's a sophomore, I believe, from Austin. I think he went to Bowie. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember that. But he's 6'4", like 250. Basically like a he's basically like Mason Tharp, except 4 inches shorter.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy. I think he could make a really big impact down the line for Texas Tech. And don't be surprised if he's in there for long stretches of time because he is one of those guys that is a very good blocker. And Kittley has said ad nauseum that the first thing that he wants his tight ends to do is block. Pass catching will come second. And so I think that Jaden York could see some snaps this year. How many? I don't know. And if all three of those guys stay healthy, probably a lot less than I would even consider. Right. But don't be surprised if he's out there. And then another name too, I don't know how much he's going to be out there, but we've seen him sometimes. It's Jason Lloyd. Don't be surprised if he's used in like a fullback role. Wouldn't be surprised by that either.
Yeah, Joey said this a lot, especially with like the running back room. They're going to ride the hot hand. I could see that being the case for tight ends too, right? If one of these guys is providing the blocking that you need, then I think you're going to see a lot of them. And a lot like the offense might be, it could be game to game. Maybe this is Mason Tharp's game. Maybe this is Baylor Cupp's. So kind of questions that I'm real curious about for both of you guys here. Who do you think ends up having more touchdowns this season? Mason Tharp, maybe Henry Teeter, Baylor Cupp. RC, who do you have leading this room in touchdowns this year?
Mason Tharp.
Tharp.
I have that too.
It's hard not to throw just middle of the field or even fade routes to him. Just, hey, go get it.
Is a
lot more agile than people think. Yep.
Yeah. Well, like we've always thrown fades, but throwing a fade to a 6'9" guy has to be one of the most difficult things to defend in all of college football.
Well, I mean, just how do you feel if you're a safety, a 5'10" safety, running down the middle of the field, right down the middle, right on the hash marks, right? And you see a guy that's 6'9", 265 running a 4.7 at you, and he's a foot taller than you, and if he lowers his shoulder, you're decapitated, basically. Like, how do you feel? How do you feel about that? Like it's just wild. Like, I don't know. I think, you're going to see tight ends on the fade routes, but you're going to see tight ends up the hash marks a crap ton. And they're going to be in this vertical passing game a lot. Trust me. And don't be surprised, too. I've seen some videos of it where they're running plays where you have Tharp and Cupp on the same side of the line, and the inside guy, you would think, oh, he's going to block, right? No, he goes and runs straight down the hash, and then the other guy on the other side goes in and chip blocks. And you're like, how is that possible? It's not supposed to be legal like that, but you set it up to where they're both technically not on the line. Good to go.
Yeah, I think if I was a safety, I would think about finding another career. Like if we're starting to have 6'9" tight ends that can move like this, I don't know if I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, that's why I quit football. I got ahead of the curve early,
Yeah,
that's why I quit football.
Then we all. So Dustin, I'll start this question with you. Who do you think has more yards out of this?
I'm going to hope that Baylor Cupp has more yards for you. Just using his versatility and athleticism. Not hating on Mason Tharp. I could see this also being like we just debated the running backs of like it could be 50-50 up in the air, both of them having great touchdown and yardage seasons. But I'm going to hope for Baylor Cupp having the more yards there.
I have that as well. RC, who do you think?
Mason Tharp.
Okay.
Until you prove it. Yeah. No disrespect to Baylor. Just stay on the field, then I'll believe it, man. That's it.
I think either way, either of those picks is pretty good. So last season, our top two tight ends combined had 504 yards, 5 touchdowns. So trying to think of a good over-under for that for this room and how I think Kittley is going to utilize these guys. I have these 3 guys. I have over 1,000 yards for this room and over 10 touchdowns or over under 10 touchdowns for this room as a total. That's all 3 guys. And even those other 2 guys that RC mentioned here that might find themselves in the pass game as well. So I don't know if those are valid numbers, if we're going to be able to double that up, but I just think that Kittley's actually going to use these guys more than Cumbie did and more than Yost did. I know Wells was all in on the tight ends and we never really got to see them fully used. So RC, I'll kick it over to you. Do you think those are fair numbers, or do you think we need to lower those a little bit, or where are you at?
I'd go under for both. If you have all 3 in there, I don't think it's a crazy number. I think personally, if you're including all 3, I think 750 is probably what I would say. 750 and 7. But But also, again, it only takes, the crazy part is you have that 504. Like, I think 150 of those yards came off of two Travis Kuntz broken plays. Yeah, like where he got 75-yard TDs or whatnot. So I think probably 750. So I go under for both, but I think there is the potential to get close to that, especially if Baylor Cup does stay healthy.
Yeah.
And I think the only way it does go over, realistically, is if these wide receivers don't step up and Kittley's basically not force feeding the tight ends, but they're more integral in the vertical passing game because the wide receivers on the outside aren't stepping up.
Yeah, so Dustin, I'm guessing you're under.
Yeah, I'd say closer to the 800-yard mark, like RC was hinting at. I'll take the over on the touchdowns, though, just using these guys' size on that goal line and throwing the ball either up to them or letting them box guys out and just catching it in front of them. And so I'll take the over on the touchdowns at 10, though.
Yeah, I think I would like to see us be close to that 1,000. I really would, with the potential of this room and Kittley running this offense. I would like to see it. I'm going to go under there, but I'm also going to go over on the touchdowns just because I think these are red zone weapons that we are going to be able to take advantage of. Their height, their agility, all of that stuff is just a mismatch for just about everybody in the secondary. And so I see these guys being problems in the red zone. Maybe that's why you have wide receivers that have lesser numbers, is because hopefully these guys are stepping up and becoming legitimate options in there for you. So let's get to maybe one of the other most unknown groups, and that's our offensive line. This was one of the things that as soon as Joey McGuire came in here, it was let's fix the trenches on both sides. Let's try to get whatever transfers we can in here. They're heavily recruiting that, in the high school ranks right now, trying to get offensive linemen, defensive linemen in here to, work on that. So RC, just your thoughts on what he's been able to do in trying to plug up this offensive line through the transfer portal, and what you think that this group could provide for us this season.
Yeah, I think he did a all right job. All things considered. I don't think it was brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, but it was all right. You go out and get a guy and Cole Spencer, who obviously has a lot of lineage playing with Zach Kittley at Western Kentucky, but there's an injury risk there too. I mean, he's got a knee injury. How much is he going to be able to play? He hasn't been able to participate in fall camp yet. And it seems like coach speak, Joey McGuire's like, hey, he's a week or two away. Well, coach, he's been a week or two away, it feels like, for a long time. And again,
season.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. Like, I get what you have to do. He's a guy to watch. I think the center position is going to be super interesting with Wilburn and Briggs. You bring those two guys in here. And then you got Mills and Bohannon on the outside at right tackle. And then Wright, which is surprising. I thought he would have a spot locked up, but apparently him and I butcher his name every time. Is it Shanahan? He's at right guard. Those two guys. The guy I'm most confident in by far is Caleb Rogers. It's not close.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be an all Big 12 type guy. The guys that I'm most interested to see that they brought in, Mills has to be up there, because I think if you can really solidify that right tackle spot with already having your left tackle solidified, I think that does wonders. Because if Cole Spencer is what he is, and maybe he doesn't even live up to the expectations that we think, but if he is just a solid, like, that's all he needs to be, is solid. Doesn't have to be fantastic. At left guard, you're good. I think Weston Wright's going to win the right guard job. I'm, again, surprised that he's not already locked in there anyway. So that leaves you with the center position. And it's interesting. I think it's a coin flip. I'd probably go with Briggs, ? As the guy. But again, it wouldn't shock me if Wilburn. But overall, like, the guys they brought in, I don't think it was sensational. It wasn't bad. They got bodies in here, which is half the battle. But the big thing for me that they did was they got guys in the transfer portal that have more than just 1 year of eligibility. right?
Yeah.
So you got a guy in Mills who can be here for a long time, right? Wilburn here can be here for a while. Played a little bit for Texas, like he's been at Texas Tech, but he's still got some more years of eligibility. Same with Briggs. So I think that that's really what you look at long term is, hey, it might not be a quick fix this year, what they did in the transfer portal, but I think that they got a couple of guys that can make an impact maybe right away, but will definitely be maybe stalwarts on the offensive line moving forward. And don't forget about Jacoby Jackson either. Jacoby Jackson's he's getting a lot of praise in camp. I had a friend tell me that was at the past, I think it was 4 or 5 practices that he was the best offensive lineman Texas Tech had, and that includes Caleb Rogers. Yeah.
Well, that's good to see. Yeah, Dustin, your thoughts on this, kind of patchwork line group, but it looks like they've tried to put in a lot more depth as well. I think that's one of maybe the strengths of this group is like RC just mentioned, there's multiple guys competing for these roles. So it looks like this, coaching staff at this point has confidence in multiple guys that run some of these positions. So your kind of thoughts on this group looking in at the beginning of the season and a group that's kind of been a struggle for us over the last,
I don't know how much we raised the talent level, like of the 5 guys we're going to put out there. I definitely think the 8, 9, 10 guys we just mentioned, like the depth and the talent are much higher than what it has been in the past. And that is a big factor. Like you already mentioned, Cole Spencer's going to deal with a knee thing. That doesn't mean we're going to fall off at that position now. Whereas in years past, if we lose a guy like Terrence Steele or somebody on that line, we're like, oh no, like how are we going to supplement that guy filling in and help him out? And maybe now, like they brought in a lot of guys that have experience, and also, like you said, has a couple years to play, but they've played meaningful football already. And so that's kind of a big deal too, I think. You're bringing in a lot of depth and competition, and that only makes everybody around that room better.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this group does. And as long as we don't have anybody who ends up being as noticeable as TJ Storment was last year with all the penalties and stuff like that, I think we're going to be all right. That dude was, I don't know, that dude was killer for me. I hated every time he got several penalties a game, uncalled for stuff. So hopefully they can clean up some of that stuff. I do like the coaching hire that we made, Coach Hamby, hiring him, a guy who was on one of the best lines that we had at Texas Tech during that run with Mike Leach. So, RC, what are your thoughts on Hamby, following Kittley over here, and what do you think that he adds to this offensive line that, might help benefit this kind of piece together line right now?
Provenness and reliability. I think that those are the 2 biggest traits that Hamby brings. He's proven it at multiple levels now. He's taken quote unquote lesser talent and elevated it on his offensive line. And don't get this twisted. He's a big reason for Zach Kittley's success, and Zach Kittley knows that. Zach Kittley knows that. Without your offensive line, you're not going to have time for Bailey Zappi to throw for 6,000 yards. You're just not. Yeah. And so he's a big reason Zach Kittley has had a success, and vice versa. Just being paired together like that, it wouldn't shock me if we're talking about maybe even next year if Texas Tech has a great offense that Hamby and Zach Kittley leave, just because again a Power 5 school is going after them. Obviously, not ideal, but I could see it. But that also means Texas Tech probably overachieved, which is fantastic.
Great for us.
So I think, just, again, reliability, man. I mean, he's so reliable. He knows this university like the back of his hand. You mentioned it already. He's played here before. But I think he's reliable more so to his players. You hear that from really the whole coaching staff in general is reliable. Like, it just feels like there's a different vibe. And I think Hamby has a lot to do with that. And he's just really good with the technique, man. I mean, he is so good with these techniques. The guy, again, there's guys on this offensive line that have talent. They're playing at a Power 5 level. But our coach is going to get them to their ceiling. I think Hamby allows them to get closer to their ceiling than previous offensive line coaches Texas Tech has had, which I guess isn't really saying that much. Because some of these offensive line coaches have been dog, you know what. But I think Hamby has that. And again, I think the proof is in it, because if you would have told me that, my buddy again would have texted me, he's been to 4 or 5 practices, as I mentioned, about Jacoby Jackson. If you would have told me that in spring, I probably would have laughed at you a little bit, because I've seen Jacoby. And again, he was 18 years old last year, right? He's 19 this year. This dude is 6'6", 335. He's still learning his body, right? Like, I barely know how to use my body, and I'm 5'10", $165. Okay? And 28 years old. But don't get me started, right? So, like, but that progression has just gone and just done amazing things. And that's a testament to the coaching and going into the weight room and figuring out your body a little bit. So you got to give Jacoby some credit too. But I think Hamby, that's really what he brings, is just that reliability, and just the knowledge, just something that Texas Tech has struggled with to find as an offensive line coach is just, can he actually teach the technique, and can he adjust? And he's proven at multiple levels he can.
Yeah. Dustin, your thoughts on Hamby and what he brings to this line?
Kind of McGuire keeping guys around, or having Tech guys like him and Jones, like, he double dipped here. He got a former Tech player and a guy that Kittley knows, and knows Kittley's offense. And so, like, that just should be a seamless transition for him to come in and crush it here. And, we always love bringing former players back and embracing our own. So I'm really excited for him, because he was on some really good offensive lines back in the day here. So he's seen it done as a player and as a coach. So I'm really excited for him to be heading up that group.
Yeah, I'm pumped for him. I love a coach that when we get an offensive line recruit, his gift that he posts is him shoving a dude in the face for Ole Miss. Like, I just love that kind of big, nasty attitude. And I'm with you, RC. I think he raises the ceiling for this group, having a guy that can teach you the right technique. Like, those little details go such a long way, and we just haven't had that. It's been so long since we've had that. So really looking forward to seeing what he can do with this offensive line. But that pretty much covers every group that we've got here. So, RC, I'll kick it over to you. Any parting thoughts you have on this offense? Any bold predictions you want to make for this offense? Here's your floor to do so.
No, I think I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but just be realistic about it. There's going to be ebbs and flows. It's going to take some time. I think a lot is predicated on the offensive line early on. And remember, this is probably the hardest schedule Texas Tech has had in a decade. So, and a first-year head coach. And you're not sure right now, 3 weeks before the season starts, who's going to be your quarterback. Not to mention 3/5 of your offensive line. So I would just say be patient, be realistic about it. I do think that Texas Tech has talent. Will it happen this year and be put all together? I don't know, but I'm very excited to see this staff and this group of players because there's just this feeling and around this program from even Dallas and just, still being able to cover it from here where it's like, okay, I haven't experienced anything like this covering this team ever, I just haven't. The last time that I felt any kind of excitement at this kind of level or anywhere near it was when Baker Mayfield was coming back to Lubbock to play Patrick Mahomes. That was a game, right? But you have this excitement not just for this year, but it feels like it's going to be sustained with the recruiting and stuff that's going on as well. So, I think, again, I hate to just feel like I'm the Debbie Downer of the group and everything, but just be realistic about it. There's going to be ebbs and flows, as I mentioned, but all in all, super excited to see what the staff and these group of players do because, we're less than 3 weeks away, about 2 weeks away now. I guess a little over 2.5 weeks. So there you go.
No, I think you make great points there. And it's something we try to preach to Texas Tech fans a lot is being realistic. Like, come on. I know we all want Joey McGuire to be successful and win 10 games this first season, but we haven't won more than 7 games in regular season since Leach was here. So tempering our expectations a little bit, like, hey, if it's 6-6 this year, as long as we can see some of those improvements, like let's be excited. Yeah, be excited about that. We got to see some of those things. Dustin, any parting thoughts that you have on this offense? Any bold predictions? Any other statements you want to make?
This offense, the more excited I get and want to overreach and I try to tamper, but
right.
It's
easy to this year, I think.
Which is natural. Like, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
That's what you should be doing, 100%.
Exactly.
That's why I feel like the Debbie Downer.
I don't even know how bold this might be, but like our offense should be top 2 or 3 in the Big 12 this next year, I could see, and top 20 in the country.
All right. I like that. He did it at Western Kentucky. I think he can do it at Texas Tech. He got better weapons here, I think. So here'll be a couple of my bold predictions. I'll throw this out there. So I've got 3 position players with double-digit touchdowns. I've got wide receiver, tight end, and a running back. I think we'll have 3 guys who would go over double digits on the touchdowns. And I think we'll have 2 first-team All-Americans at the end of the season. I think Miles Price and whichever tight end, Baylor Cupp or Mason Tharp, asserts themselves as kind of like that dominant force, I think could see themselves as first-team All-Americans at the end of this season. So those will be – and then my last one, Tyler Shough will remain healthy all season long. That's my bold prediction, is we'll have quarterback health.
You didn't say as the starter, though.
They didn't say he's the starter. So whoever our starting quarterback is will remain.
He could be healthy all year, just, be on the bench. You never know.
Yeah, so true. So what I wrote down here said QB will remain healthy all season long. Exclamation
point. Fair enough.
So.
I got you. Yeah, I think I think for me, the bold prediction, I guess if I had one, I hadn't really thought about it, but the first one that came to mind was Texas Tech will have a top 4 quarterback in the Big 12.
I like
Don't
that.
ask me who it is. I don't know who it is, but y'all know my opinion on who it is.
Yeah.
But whichever one it is, it doesn't matter. There'll be a top 4 quarterback in the Big 12.
I think, I agree with that. I believe in what Zach Kittley can do with the quarterback, and if it's this tight right now, I think that means that they believe that they can do that with any one of these quarterbacks. So. It's exciting times. You want to be realistic, but it is exciting times. This is as most excited as we've been for Texas Tech in a while. We got back in on season tickets for it. We're all bought into the Joey McGuire era. We want success. We need some football success in our lives. Being good at basketball and baseball is a lot of fun. But when you have football going, that's just like a completely different thing.
Man.
When you have the Jones pack, the tortillas flying, and you're winning those games at the Jones, it's different. It's different. So we are thankful to have you on, RC. It's been a minute since we were able to talk to you, but happy to have you join the tailgate again. Give us all your thoughts on this offense, and we look forward to the Joey McGuire era kicking off in just under 3 weeks. So once again, RC, if you want to go ahead and shout out everything that you're doing right now, I know you're all over social media with Texas Tech stuff, and you got your little sports gaming thing going on. So give everybody what they can follow you at and everything like that.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at RCNB323. I look like a 12-year-old in the Dallas skyline. But yeah, I do that. And then the Back to 12 podcast and that YouTube channel with Texas Tech legend wide receiver Lyle Leong Jr. We're starting that back up here in just a little bit. Also do Gaming Today stuff, which is sports betting. That's at Gaming Today News. But, just a lot of stuff like that. But I'll be out there, too, for going to actually watch basketball practice the weekend before the Houston game with my buddy Tobias. I don't know if y'all know who that is, but buddy Tobias. We're going out there to watch basketball practice and then going for the Houston game. So I will be having numerous cervezas. Obviously, have to stop at Dirk's Chicken and then hopefully watching a Texas Tech game and not dying in the scorching heat. I hopefully can be lucky enough to sit in the press box because, guys, I am just not built differently anymore. This sports media stuff has made me to where it's I need some AC. I need the AC. I'm that
We
guy
don't know
now.
what that life's like.
Yeah, I know. I lost it, man. I remember my first 2 years Tech. I was the kid waiting in lines with my buddies for a long time, whether for football games, basketball games, whatever. And one of my friends' little brothers goes to school there now, and he was like, "Should I have to wait for the line?" And I was like, "Man, I don't think I could do that. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like,
No.
what was I thinking? Like,
Built different
I
back
waited.
in those days.
The last student game I ever went to was the Baker Mayfield Texas Tech game.
Nice.
And we waited in line for 9.5 hours.
Yeah, no thank
and
you.
I legitimately hated myself. And we got first row on the 40, which was cool.
There you go,
but
yeah.
I legitimately hated myself and realized right then, like, I am going to watch every game for my college career remainder in the press box.
Yeah, we were both, when we for the Texas basketball game, we were walking around just seeing the line of students. We were just telling each other, I'm so thankful that we are not students
knowing
anymore,
you
that
have
we
a
have
seat where it
guaranteed
is,
spot.
you can get there whenever you want.
Yeah, it is. That's kind of the media side of it too. It's like, I know where my sticker's at. I know where it is. Like, I know what chair I'm sitting in and everything. It's fine with me.
All right. Well, awesome, man. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us, talk Texas Tech offense. We can't wait to see what this season holds, and maybe we'll check in back with you later on, and hopefully offensive things are good. Maybe we can, talk about how bad some of these over-under picks were.
Trust me, yeah, I made the over-under picks, so they're going to be bad. I can promise you that, fellas.
Thanks, man.
All right, man. Well, thank you. Well, have a good one, man.